Good day to everyone. My name is K S Mathew, a professor in the Department of Computer Science, Dr School of Engineering and Technology, Kochi. Welcome to the course CS308, Software Engineering and Project Management, 6th semester B.Tech Computer Science, Kerala Technological University. Today in this session, I am going to discuss one of the topic in Module 6, Software Configuration Management. The term Software Configuration Management is a misnomer. When you hear this term, you may think that it is something related to configuration of software product, but it is nothing to do with configuration of software product. It's a process, software project management process, and it is not at all related to configuring the software product. So we will see what is meant by software configuration management during this session, and what are the processes, what are the different activities done as part of software configuration management in the software industry in software projects. These are the subtopics we are going to discuss during this session. Software configuration management overview. We will see some definitions that comes in software configuration management, purpose and functions of software configuration management, benefits of software configuration management, and key definitions. What are the roles and responsibilities related to configuration management in software projects? What is the process? What are the processes or activities done as part of configuration management in software projects? And implementation. How do we implement software configuration management process in software projects? CM planning, configuration management planning, execution, and what are the tools we use for implementing software configuration management, and finally the references. Let us look at some definitions of software configuration management. Software configuration management is the task of tracking and controlling changes in the software. That's the definition given by Wikipedia. So it is the task or activity of tracking and controlling the changes in the software projects. In software project, there are a lot of work products. So the basic purpose of software configuration management is to track and control the changes of these work products throughout the project life cycle. Let us see another definition by the software engineering guru R.S. Pressman. Software configuration management is a set of activities designed to control the change by identifying the work products that are likely to change, establishing relationship among them, defining mechanisms for managing different versions of these work products, controlling the changes imposed, and auditing and reporting on the changes made. So it's a more comprehensive definition of software configuration management. So we look at different parts of this definition. It's a set of activities designed to control the change in the software work products. So in order to do that, first of all, we need to identify the work product that are likely to change during the project. Then establish the relationship between those work products. When work product change, what are the other work products that are likely to change? We need to identify. So the relationship between various work products that are likely to change has to be identified. Then identify the mechanism for managing different versions of this work product. During the project life cycle, all these work products may have different versions, go through different versions or modifications during the entire project life cycle. So when it goes through different modifications, how do we manage different versions of this work product? How do we maintain different versions of this work product? And controlling the changes in these work products. And then finally, there is audit process as part of project quality audit. So configuration activities also has to be audited. And provide a report of configuration management activities to the stakeholders of the project. This is a comprehensive definition of software configuration management run by the software engineering guru RS Prasma. So let us look at the functions and purpose of SCM in more detail. The purpose of software configuration management is to establish and maintain the integrity of work products throughout the software lifecycle. So as part of the definition, explaining the definition, I told you about there will be various work products in a software project, which will be produced in different phases of software project. So the purpose of the software configuration management is to maintain the integrity of this work product throughout the project life cycle. So you need to have consistency between, normally one work product may go as input to another process, which will produce another work product. So all these work products should be consistent with each other. So the integrity between this work product has to be maintained. So that is the basic purpose of software configuration management. The purpose of software configuration management is to establish and maintain the integrity of various work products produced during different life cycles of a software, different phases of a software project. This involves 4 key functions. First of all, we need to identify the work products and the baselines of those work products that are subject to configuration control. So we need to identify what are the different work products we are going to produce during the project in various phases and establish baselines for those products during the project. So identifying the work product that are likely to change during the project is for the first activity as part of software configuration management. Then the second activity is controlling the changes of this work product. Control the approval and rejection of proposed changes to configuration items. So once you identify the work product that are likely to change, they are normally called as configuration items. So the second function of configuration management is to control the changes of these work products or configuration items. So there will be proper approval mechanisms in order to modify these work products which are once baselined. You need to control the changes of this work product. You cannot just keep on changing work product once without approval, without proper communication and approval. So the second activity or function is to control the changes of these configuration items of work product. Then status accounting of configuration data and changes. So we need to also have a mechanism for accounting or maintaining the details of these changes of various work products. Status accounting. What is the current version of each work product? When was that work product last changed? What was the reason for the change? Who approved the change? All that has to be maintained. All those details of configuration items and the changes of the configuration item has to be, and various versions of current versions of various work product has to be maintained. That activity is normally called as status accounting. We need to have an account of status of various work products. And the fourth main function is to audit the configuration management activity to maintain the integrity of the work product and baselines. So what are the benefits of SCM? Implementing SCM, it improves product protection. So the product integrity will be protected. So once you make a build out of various work products during the project, so you can ensure that the integrity of the product can be maintained. That way we protect the product integrity. Product visibility with this software configuration management activity helps to maintain the visibility of product progress during the project. So everyone involved in the project or all stakeholders will be able to see the current versions without much difficulty. What's the current version of various product? They will be able to easily see and identify without much problem once you have a proper configuration management process. Product control changes in the product. Our products can be will have a control. We cannot just keep on changing without proper approval. So we have a proper control on product changes, and it helps in communicating between the team members and all stakeholders. So everyone will have a clarity on the different versions and the latest versions of various products, and they will be able to easily trace various versions of work products, which will help in improving the customer confidence. It helps in decreasing the rework, confusion among team members, and it reduces project risk. When you avoid confusion and rework, it reduces project risk. Some of the definitions related to configuration management. Software configuration item, or SCI or CI, is an aggregation of work products. It could be a hardware, software, firmware, or a documentation that is designated for configuration management and is treated as a single entity in the configuration management process. So as part of the functionality of configuration management, we talked about identification of configuration items or work products. So we need to identify what are the work products that are likely to change during the project, and that is normally called as software configuration item, or in short, configuration item. So each and every work product that are likely to change during the project is treated as a configuration item and are put under control, under configuration control. And second definition, we talked about baseline several times before as well. So let us see what is meant by baseline. Baseline is a set of specification of work product. It could be a documentation or a work product that has been formally reviewed and agreed on. When you produce a work product during a phase of a project, for example, a software requirement documentation, requirement specification, it will go through the review process. Once the review comments are fixed, it will be finalized as a particular version, first version for example, and that first version after review and approval of that work product is called as a baseline. So whenever a work product is produced, it will go through the review process, and after the review the work product will be accepted or finalized, and that version of the work product is called as a baseline. And after baselining a product, for example version 1.0, that version will become the basis for further development, and this version can be changed only through proper change control procedures. So once a product is baselined, the team is not allowed to make any modifications without proper change request and approval of that change. So that is called baseline. Every work product will be baselined once it is reviewed and approved, and after that the work product is not supposed to change without proper approval. So what are the different roles in software project with respect to configuration management, and what are the responsibilities of those roles of people in software project? So in software project, normally there will be a project leader who is responsible for normally project planning along with project manager, and project leader is normally responsible for planning all configuration management activities of the project, and he has the overall control of configuration management activities, and he owns all the tools related to configuration management activities, and he is the one who prepares the configuration management plan of the project. He decides how are they going to do the configuration management activities in their project, and project leader is responsible for doing that, and he documents that plan as a configuration management plan, which is the sub plan of project management plan, overall project management plan. Then there is a second role called CMIC, or configuration manager in charge or configuration controller or configuration management officer. Different organizations may name this role in differently. The common name is CMIC or configuration manager in charge. Some organizations may call this role as configuration controller or configuration management officer, CMO. And he is the person who is responsible for implementing the configuration management plan, which is provided by the project leader. So configuration manager in charge implements and maintains the configuration management system according to the project CM plan. He coordinates, supports and performs CM activities and reports those activities to the PL. And in some of the projects, a small project for example, project manager himself or herself can take the role of CMIC. So the CMIC role will be taken up by the project leader himself. It's possible if it is a small project. If it is a big project, a CM role can be assigned to an individual, separate individual, and project leader will be involved only in planning the CM activities, and implementing the plan will be taken care by the CMIC. And there is a third role or third entity called Configuration Control Board or CCB, and this is a group of people, maybe 3-4 people from different roles, who is responsible for, this is a body which is responsible for approving the changes or rejecting the change request. So CCB composed of technical and administrative representatives from various probably various departments like project, marketing, finance, who recommend approval or disapproval of changes, approval or rejection of changes to our product or baseline. And CCB is responsible for approving the change request and giving approval for the change request so that project manager and the leader can go ahead with implementing the change request. Some of the organization, the most common name for this board or body is Configuration Control Board or CCB. In some of the organizations, this body is termed as Internal Review Board, IRB. So this is a block diagram representing what are the interfaces between configuration management process and overall project management process and the software development process or SDLC process. So you can see the interfaces between configuration management process and project management process as well as SDLC, software development activities. So configuration management process takes input from other planning processes, which comes from project management processes as a big block. Even though this diagram looks complicated, you need not worry much about the individual small boxes inside the project management processes as well as the product development process. There are a lot of small boxes which is actually different processes coming under SDLC. And in the project management process, there are a lot of project management process which is represented using small boxes, which you need not worry at this point of time. What we need to look at is the interfaces between configuration management process and project management processes and configuration management process and product development process, the interfaces. The arrows going in and out of configuration management process to project management process as well as SDLC. So you can see there is an arrow that goes from project management processes to configuration management process, which is called planning data. So all the other plans may be taken as an input by the configuration management process. So planning configuration management activities. So configuration management plan will go as an output from configuration management process to the project management process, which will be integrated with the overall project management plan. And the status reports and audit reports, audit results and status report will also be an output from configuration management process to the project management process, which will be integrated along with other project status and progress report and audit reports. And let us look at what are the interfaces between configuration management process and SDLC process. Various work products comes from SDLC, software development process. When it executes various phases, you will get work product. At the end of every phase, you will get a work product that comes as input to the configuration management process. So the work products come as input from the software development process, and which will be baselined or controlled, and the control work products goes as output from the configuration management process to the SDLC. Similarly, change request can also be generated during various phases of software development life cycle, and that comes as change request comes as input to the configuration management process, which will get approved or rejected by the CCB or configuration control board. So the approved change request goes as output to the SDLC, software development life cycle process. Once the change request is approved, the change will be implemented as part of the normal SDLC activities. So overall process flow along with other project management and SDLC process are shown in this block diagram. So what are the CM planning and initiating activities of configuration management? So define the levels of control and responsibilities. So there are various roles of people in the project. So we need to define what's the level of access or level of control required for various roles of people in the project for various work products of the project, and also define the responsibilities of various roles of people with respect to configuration management activities. So that's the first thing we need to do as part of configuration management planning. We need to define what is the level of access or control for various work products for various roles of people in the project, and what is the responsibilities of various roles of people with respect to configuration management. Then identify configuration items. So we need to identify what are the work products that are likely to change and list them as configuration items. Identify the configuration items. And then define the configuration management procedure, which could be the standard configuration management process defined organization standard procedure, or you can customize that procedure for your specific project and define the same procedure. It could be a standard organization standard process or a tailored process. Then prepare the configuration management plan by the project leader, which will be integrated with the overall project management plan. Then establish the configuration control board CCB, which could consist of project manager, project leader, CMIC configuration manager in charge, and there can be also representatives from marketing department as well as finance department, because when there is a change in when there is a change request, that can have an impact in the cost and the schedule of the project, which has to be negotiated with the customer, and for that you need to involve marketing department, representatives from the marketing department as well as accounts department or finance department if there is a change in the schedule or the cost of the project because of a change request from the customer. So that's the reason why we need to include marketing representative or accounts representative as part of configuration control board, and all the other members could be from the project, like project manager, project leader, configuration manager in charge. Then we need to set up the environment for configuration management, set up the tools which we are going to use for version control and change request management. All those tools can be has to be set up as part of your project environment. That is, these are the activities that comes up as part of initiation activity as well as planning activity in configuration management. Then once you plan configuration management activities, it will be executed as part of project execution by CMIC. And what are the execution types? Identify work products and baselines. So as part of execution activity, work products will be delivered in each phase of the project, which will go through the review and approval process and baselining process. So baselines will be generated once a work product is reviewed and approved. Then perform configuration control, that is change control. Whenever there is a change request initiated by any stakeholder of the project, that has to go through the change control process and get the approval from the CCB before implementing the change request. That activity is called configuration control. Then configuration status accounting, status of various work products and the current versions and details of the change, etc. has to be maintained, and that activity is called status accounting. At any point in time, any team member, any stakeholder should be able to easily trace what's the latest version of various work products in the project and where is it available. They should be able to locate various versions without much difficulty. So the details of this work products has to be maintained properly. That activity is called configuration status accounting. Then audits, periodic audit, regular audits has to be done as part of configuration management also. This is normally done as part of your periodic quality audit. So this will be continued throughout the entire life cycle of the project from beginning till end. So it's a iterative approach, iterative process. So execution activities happen iteratively, regularly throughout the project life cycle. So if you look at the summary of various CM planning and startup tasks, identify configuration items including customer supplied and purchased items. So when you identify configuration item, it is not only the work product you are going to produce as part of your project, you need to identify. Also the work product supplied by other third party, like customer may supply some work product for you to test your product, or a supplier, you may get a work product from a subcontractor or a supplier. That also has to be identified as a configurable item. So you may get different versions of work product, different suppliers and contractors and the customers also. So you need to have a proper control on maintaining these versions of customer supplied and third party supplied components properly. Define naming and numbering scheme for SAIs. So the naming convention and numbering scheme for SAIs is also very important in order to trace the work products by the team members without difficulty. So if there is a standard naming conventions, it will be easy for people to identify various work products, easily identify and locate various work products. So that's why defining the naming convention is also coming under configuration management. Define the directory structure used by the project team. Also, these work products will be kept in different directory structures, defined directory structures, so that tracing these work products will be tracing and locating the work products will be very easy for the stakeholders or project team members. So directory structure you are going to use, the team members are going to use in their local PC as well as in the server, has to be defined as part of configuration management activity. And define access restrictions. So this directory structure will have access restrictions depending on the role of people in the project. So project manager may have read-only access to some of the source codes, may have access to all the directories, but he may not have a modify or update access to the code, source code, which will be modified only by the developers. But developers may not have access to modifying the project plan. Project plan will be maintained only by the project manager. So the directory structure of configuration directory structure will have various documents, and access, what is the level of access for each member of the team for this directory as well as the contents of the directory has to be defined and controlled during the project. So define access restrictions, define change control procedures. As we discussed, the change control procedure could be adapted, the organization standard procedure could be adapted as is for your current project, or you could tailor the organization standard process to define your configuration management procedure for your specific project. Depending on the nature of project, the organization standard process may not be appropriate for the current project. So you may tailor some of the areas of your standard organization standard process to make it suitable for your current project, and that way you define your control configuration management procedure for your project. Identify and define the responsibility and authority of the change control board. So you need to define the change control board and who are the members of the change control board, and what are the responsibilities of various members of the change control board has to be defined clearly. Defining a method for tracking the status of configuration items. So, status accounting of configurable items. So, how are we going to maintain the status of different configuration items, and how can we track the status of configuration item? How can the project team members or stakeholders track the status of configuration items? The method has to be defined. Backup procedure is also the work products. You need to have a backup of all the work products in order to take care of a risk of losing the data. For example, your server may crash at any point in time. So, if your work products are only available in one server, if that server crashes, the entire work product will be lost. So, you need to have some mechanism to have a backup of all the work products in multiple locations, either inside the organization or outside the organization. So, what is the procedure for backup of work products or various work products in the project has to be defined and implemented. Define a release procedure. Release procedure is also normally part of configuration management. So, when you release a product, version of a product, you need to build that version, taking the correct versions of files in order to build that final version of the product. If you take a wrong version of the file for building the product, that will create a problem in the product. So, building and releasing a version of the product has to be properly controlled, and you need to have a clearly defined procedure for release, and that is also part of configuration management planning. Define an archival procedure. Once the project is over, all the work products has to be archived. So, when the project is live, it will be available in the configuration management tools like version control systems. But once the project is closed, you need to have a archival mechanism to take an archive of all the work products, so that it can be archived in the library or the database, project database, and so that in later, maybe after 2 years or 1 year, if the customer comes back with a new version of the product by adding some additional features of the base version in the base version of the product, you should have the last version of source code available with you. So, that is the reason we need to have an archive mechanism once the project is closed, and you need to save all the work product, including the source code, safely in some locations, in some databases or servers, or as a backup tape drive or DVDs, so that later if the customer comes back to you with a change request for another project enhancing the product, original version of the product, you can take the last version of the source code from the archive and continue working on that. And when you produce a work product during different life cycle, different phases of project, that work product will go through review and approval process. And once a work product is reviewed and finalized, you need to baseline the work product so that further changes has to be controlled. So, what is the procedure? Criteria for baselining configuration items has to be defined properly. Now, let us look at what is the change control procedure. Suppose there is a change request from the customer during the project, the middle of the project. How are we going to implement those change requests, or initiate or integrate, address those change requests in the project? Initiate any change required in any of the work product or during the project has to be formally requested as a change request, and it can be requested by any stakeholder in the project. It could be initiated by a team member, it could be initiated by a customer, it could be initiated by end user or project manager, architect, or any stakeholder in the project can initiate a change request. But if it needs a change, it has to be formally requested through a formal change request. And in various organizations, there are systems for managing change requests. It could be a manual system or an online system. If it is a manual system, there will be change request forms, physical forms are available, and the changes has to be requested to these physical forms. many organizations there will be online mechanisms, online systems to initiate change requests and manage change requests. And once a change request is initiated by a stakeholder in the project manager or the project leader will assign a team member to analyze the impact of the change in the project. So assigned team member will analyze the impact of the change with respect to schedule, cost, and what are the various work product that has to be changed because of this change request, and what is the additional time and effort required for doing these changes. All this will be analyzed by the person responsible for doing the impact analysis, and we will come back with the impact analysis report, which will indicate what are the various work product that has to be changed to implement this change request, what is the time required for implementing those changes, what is the additional effort and additional money required for implementing those change requests. All this will be analyzed and reported as part of an impact analysis report. And change request with impact analysis report will be submitted for approval to change control board by the CMIC. Configuration manager in charge will submit the change request along with impact analysis report to the CCB for approval. CCB analyzes the change request along with impact analysis, change request including the impact analysis report, and take a decision on approving or rejecting the change request. Once the change request is approved, project manager or project leader will assign some team members for implementing those change requests and give access for those work product which has to be changed, or product that have to be changed to implement the change request, and the CMIC will give modification right for those team members assigned for implementing the change request. So they will check out those work products and do the modifications, and once the modifications are over, it will go through the normal verification and validation process. Once the changed work products are verified and validated, it will be checked in again. The changed SCAs will be checked in again and rebaselined by the CMIC. So that's the last process. And finally, once the change request is implemented and baselined, the status of the change request will be communicated to all the relevant stakeholders. So this is the process for change control in configuration management. These are different steps in change control procedure as part of configuration management. So this is a sample change request form. If it is a physical form, it will be something like this, an Excel sheet probably. And you have on the left hand side, you have the details of the change request, where you have the project or system under system where the changes are requested, name of the requester, date, initiate the change request date, urgency, whether it is how urgent the change is, is it a routine change or is it very urgent, and what is the type of change, whether it is in the requirement change, whether it is in a document, whether it's a process change, and what is the current version of the item number if appropriate. If it is a particular document, which is the current version has to be can be documented under current version of the item, and the new version, what is the change expected in the new version that can be documented, and suggested new item number and rationale for change. And in the right hand side, you can see the impact analysis details. Once a change request is initiated, it will be analyzed in detail for impact of the change in the project, work product, schedule, cost, etc. And the impact analysis will be documented as part of the change request. You can see in the right hand side, impact analysis, impact, the feasibility of the change, disposition date, all that can be documented. And finally, this change request along with impact analysis will be submitted to CCB for approval. CCB approval is also documented in this form. On the right hand side, you can see the result of CCD approval, whether it is accepted or accepted with modification or rejected. That will be documented here, and the signature of the approval authority will be put here. In the bottom side, you can see along with the change request form, normally organizations will also maintain a change request log, which will give you a consolidated list, which will be a consolidated list of all the changes that happened in a particular project. So the change request form is one form for each change request. So there will be different change requests and different forms, different change request form for each change. But in order to consolidate all the changes in a particular project, you will also maintain, the organization will also maintain a change request log, which will show the list of change requests that has come in the current project. Only the main details will be logged in this change request log. So you can, corresponding to each row in this change request log, there will be a change request form which will show you the details. Another important function is status accounting. This is to maintain the versions of various work products in the project throughout the project life cycle. Maintain records of the SCIs throughout the project life cycle. Record and monitor all changes to SCIs. Document the contents of versions, builds and baselines. Generate periodic status report. So status accounting is basically to maintain various versions of work products throughout the project life cycle, and it will also produce report, status report. Sorry. Configuration management activity also has to be audited as part of normal project or commodity audit. There are usually three types of configuration management audit. Configuration management audit could be functional and physical. Functional means while auditing, they will ensure that all the configuration management activities are done, functions are carried out properly by various roles of people in the project. They will also check the directory, the physical structure of the directory and the physical files or physical work products and versions of that will be verified and ensure that it is consistent with all the documentation available in the project. Baseline audit. This is normally done at the end of every phase. Once a phase is over, normally the work products will be reviewed and baseline at the end of every phase, and after that the baseline audit will be carried out before the project team moves to the next phase. And there is another important audit, before delivery audit. Before a release, before delivery audits can be performed to ensure that the release you are going to make is the build or the release is consistent, and while building the release they have taken all the correct versions of the files to make that build. All this will be verified during before delivery audit. This is normally done just before the release. And audit has to be planned and scheduled as part of your project schedule. So baseline audit is conducted at the end of every phase or major at each major delivery. It is conducted by the CMIC or CMO or designated team personnel, reviewed by the software quality analyst. And baseline audit verifies the contents of baseline. Correct versions of essays were used to build the baseline. Correct versions of documentation are included in the baseline. These are the two main things checked or verified during baseline audit. What are the various configuration management records maintained as part of project records for configuration activities? Configuration management plan, which will be prepared by the project leader, which will be normally a sub-plan in the overall project management plan. Schedule of CM activities. As part of project schedule, you will also include the activities related to configuration management. So schedule of configuration management activities will be included as part of your project schedule. Evidence of change request handling, assignment and tracking. Change request, records of change request form, impact analysis, result, change request log, all this will be verified. All this will come as change configuration management records. CCB agenda, configuration control board agenda, if there was a meeting conducted to take approval of some change request, the agenda and the minutes of meeting of the CCB meeting will be documented. Release notes and delivery letters are also part of configuration management. Release is also part of configuration management. So release notes and delivery letters will come as records as part of configuration management records. Audit, CM audit reports will be another record as part of configuration management. And emails communicating the audit result, configuration problems, distribution of the plan, change request, email for analysis, summary of open CRs, all this will be can be other CM records as part of configuration management. Configuration management, in a project there will be many people, 50 people, 10 people, 100 people. So all of them will be working in the same product or same files many times. So it will be very, very difficult to maintain the versions of the work product when a lot of people work on the same work product continuously on a regular basis. And it cannot be done manually. So there are a lot of version control tools, software tools available to help the configuration manager in charge to maintain the versions of work products and various files in a software project. There will be thousands of files in a software project, and all these files may be worked upon by multiple people, and the modification done by one member in one file could be overwritten by another person if it is not properly controlled. So it is nearly impossible to control these changes manually. So in order to do this, there are a lot of version control tools, software tools available. Software project use these software tools to maintain a repository of various work products in the project. These are the common tools used by the project teams. JIT is a recent tool, very new tool used. A lot of people use JIT, GitHub, etc. Then there is a free version called free software version control tool called Subversion or SVN, and VSL Visual Source Safe is from Microsoft. It's a licensed product. Concurrent versioning system from IBM. TFS Team Foundation Server is also from Microsoft. So there are a lot of tools which can be used for version control. Summary of configuration management topic. So basic function or purpose of configuration management is to maintain the integrity of various work products throughout the project life cycle, and these are the main activities done as part of configuration management: configuration identification, configuration control, status accounting, and audit. And CM records has to be organized and maintained in the project repository, which will go through audit. So these are the various acronyms used in this presentation: CCB, change control board, software configuration item is CI, configuration management CM, CMIC configuration manager in charge, CMO configuration management officer, change request CR, change request, internal review board IRB, SMB, PP, software management plan or product plan, software quality assurance, quality analyst, SQA. References, reference used for preparing this configuration management topic is Pankaj Jalote, Software Project Management Practice, Pearson Education, 2005. Thank you. We will meet again with another topic in Module 5 in CS308, Software Engineering and Project Management. Thank you.